So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caitlin Leggett. I'm an environmental scientist in the Waste Notifications Group. I'd like to welcome you all to the 2021 Hazardous Waste Report Workshop, Part 1, Submitting Electronically. So some housekeeping before we begin. All information contained herein is provided solely for educational purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for professional or legal advice. Should you decide to act upon any information contained in this presentation, you do so at your own risk. While the information posted has been verified to the best of our abilities, we cannot guarantee that there are no mistakes or errors. So a quick outline of what we'll discuss today: the difference between the annual report and the biannual report, who has to submit, submitting electronically, a quick walkthrough of RCRA info, some contact information for the Waste Notification and Reporting Group, Surveillance Regional Offices, and the Small Business Assistance Program, a slide of helpful online resources, and we will have the questions and answers at the end of the workshop. Now you can answer or submit your questions at any time using the questions and answers button, but please note the specific section that your question pertains to. This workshop will be recorded and posted on our website and YouTube channel for easy review. So Louisiana requires the submission of the RCRA Hazardous Waste Report every year, while EPA in some states only require this information to be submitted every other year, which is why some call it the annual report and some call it the biannual report. So this is a reporting year for EPA, but we will still call it an annual report. So who has to submit the annual report? A facility that met the definition of a large quantity generator, a facility that treats, stores, disposes, or recycles hazardous waste on-site or ships the hazardous waste off-site to a TSD facility, or a facility that receives waste from off-site generators. So an easy way that we check to see if you need to submit the report is if you are currently or were at one point in the year registered as an LQG. So the report can be submitted electronically using the RCRA info module, and as always, they are due by March 1st. You do not have to submit a hard copy or submit a paper form if you decide to submit using RCRA info. If you start to submit electronically, but decide halfway through that you want to submit using the paper forms, make sure that your electronic submission is fully deleted before you submit the paper submittals. There will be a workshop regarding the paper submittals this Thursday at 1 p.m. And there must be one person with an industry user account, which is just a RCRA info account, at the facility in order for them to submit through RCRA info. If you already submit your discharge monitoring reports electronically through CDX, you can use that account to log into RCRA info. So now we're going to start our walkthrough of RCRA info by registering an industry user. So when you go to the RCRA info homepage, in that RCRA info sign-in box, you'll see register. Click on that, you'll enter your name. Click next. You'll enter a user ID, create a password, and answer these 3 questions. You will be asked those questions if you ever need to reset your password, so make sure you memorize them or write them down somewhere. Check the box that you agree to the terms and conditions and click next. Here you'll input your organization's information and your job title and your contact information. You will send verification code via email. Once you have verified your email, you'll be allowed to click register, which will pop up this green bar at the top of your screen saying that you have completed your registration, and it will send you to where you can connect to your facility. So now we're going to connect to your facility and you can request your permissions. So under this My Sites, you will click Select Existing Site. You will not select requesting new site ID because that is when a facility is applying for a new EPA ID number, and Louisiana has not opted to do this electronically. So you can search via the site ID, which is just the EPA ID number, or you can search via the site name, city, state, and zip code. Once you click search, it will pull up a list of search results. You will just check the box that corresponds to your facility and request access. So there are 4 different permission levels. You can be a site manager, which can view, edit, and sign the report. You can be a viewer, preparer, and certifier under the annual report and biannual report. The viewer can only view the data in the report. The preparer can only edit data in the report, while the certifier can edit, sign, and submit the data. And again, since Louisiana requires reports every year, you will need to request your permissions under the annual report and the biannual report. If you are able to sign up as a site manager, you will only need to sign up as a site manager. The site manager or certifier must be someone who is an authorized representative, which is someone that is responsible for the overall operation of the site or an operational unit. So for example, the plant manager or superintendent. Once you choose your permission level, you will send request and it will bring you back to your My Sites. You'll see that the permission status is now pending, and RCRA Info will email you once those permissions you requested have either been accepted or denied. If they have been denied, it will tell you the reason why. So the next few slides will only pertain to certifiers and site managers. Your first login after you've been approved, you will be prompted to complete the electronic signature agreement and to prove your identity. You'll need to answer these 5 questions and make sure you memorize them, because you will be asked to answer at least one of them when you go in to sign the report. And you'll click next. So you can verify your identity the electronic way, which will be the quickest method. You'll be either approved or denied within seconds by RCRA Info. You'll need to input your personal information. Check that you agree to the electronic signature agreement, and verify and sign. If you decide to do the paper method, you'll need to check this bar, print out this form, and sign the original wet ink signature version to LDEQ. So if you have been approved to be a site manager and your identity has been verified, RCRA Info will prompt you to opt into the ESA management. This will allow you to receive paper ESAs from people affiliated to your connected sites. So in other words, this will give you the opportunity to approve requests to be viewers, preparers, or certifiers for your facilities, and will drastically speed up this process. It will default to no, so you'll need to check this bar, and you'll see that the mailing address will be pre-populated with the information from your registration. Once you verify that this information is correct, you will check that you confirm that you have read the rules of behavior and save and continue. We're going to complete the report. So back to your My Sites, you'll see that the permission status is now active and that the site name is in a blue font. This is a hyperlink that will take you to the main dashboard to work and view your reports. So this will be your main dashboard for the facility. So we have access to the biannual report, annual report, and e-manifest because we were approved as a site manager. If you only registered and were approved as a viewer of the annual report, you will only see the annual report tab. If any of this information under site details needs to be updated, you can do that in the SI form. Since this is a reporting year for EPA, we will check the biennial, click on the biennial report tab and create new submission. It will prompt you to either upload a zip file with the GM and WR form data or continue on to data entry. If you choose to upload a file, the OI form and SI form will need to be completed manually. For the sake of speed, we will not upload and just continue on to data entry. You also have the option to bring forward the GM data from the most recent biennial reporting cycle. If you do bring forward the data, you will still need to complete some of the sections of the GM form and the OI, WR, and SI form. Again, for the sake of this workshop, we are not going to bring forward any of the GM data. So, a quick summary of the forms before we get into the nitty-gritty. The SI form is fulfilling the re-notification requirement of LQGs. So the information should only pertain to the current status of the facility. The GM, WR, and OI forms are describing the hazardous waste and how it was managed from the reporting year. The waste notifications and reporting group cannot give you specifics for how to classify your waste, nor classify your facility's regulated waste activities. You will need to contact someone in the surveillance regional office for your facility, and we will have that contact information at the end of the workshop. So for the GM form, we will add new GM form. Section 1A is a waste description. This is just a short explanation of the waste. It can be the general type, source, type of hazard, and or generic chemical name of the waste. Section 1B is the hazardous waste codes. You must select one or more of these 4-digit codes that applies to the waste. You can find a short description of the federal hazardous waste codes in the RCRA Subtitle C reporting forms or in the Louisiana Administrative Code Title 33, Part 5, Chapter 49, or one can be emailed upon request. Section 1D is the source code. Section 1E is the form code. Section 1F is the waste minimization code. You will need to click on that bar in Section G if the hazardous waste was mixed with radioactive material. In Section 1H, you will input the amount of hazardous waste generated and select the unit of measure. If you chose gallons, liters, or cubic yards, you will need to input the density and the density unit of measure. So Section 2 deals with if any of the waste that you generated was treated on site. If yes, you will click on this bar and add on-site process system. You will select the management method code used and how much was treated this way. Save changes. And you'll see that it is summarized in this table. You can edit or delete using these action buttons in the action column and repeat this as many times as you need to. Section 3 deals with the waste that was shipped off. If this pertains to the waste, you will click on this bar, add offsite facility. So you can search by the EPA ID number of the receiving facility, or you can search by their name or location city. You will choose the one that you need. You'll see that it will pre-populate their information. You will select the offsite management code, how much you shipped to this facility, and save changes. Just like in Section 2, it will summarize the information in this table. You can print or you can edit or delete using these action buttons and do this as many times as you need to. For the comments, if the amount generated doesn't match what was managed on site or shipped off site, RCRA Info will prompt you to review the form. If there is any discrepancy in the quantities, just add a short comment describing why. Click Save, and it will redirect you back to this main page. You'll see that we now have a page 1 under the GM form. You can print, edit, or delete using these action buttons in this action column. And if you look under the OI form, you will see that our receiving facility is now listed. For the WR form, we will add new WR form. For section 1A, we'll just add a short explanation of the waste, the general type, source of hazard, type of hazard, or generic chemical name. Section 1B, you'll input one or more of these 4-digit codes that apply to the waste. And in section 1D, you will input the EPID number of the generating facility. If you do not know the EPID number, you can search. Again, you can search by the EPID number or site ID, or by the site name, city, state, or zip code. Once you click search, it will pull up a list of search results. You will click on the site ID of the corresponding facility that you need, and it will pre-populate this information for you. Section 1E, you'll input the form code. Section 1F, the management code. Section G, you'll input how much you received from this facility, the unit of measure. If you choose gallons, liters, or cubic yards, you will need to input the density and density unit of measure. You'll click Save, and it will bring you back to this main page where you can print, edit, or delete this page of the WR form using those action buttons. And if you move down to the OI form, that generating facility has now been listed. For the OI form, you will need to input your transporters manually because not all states require that this information be inputted. But since Louisiana does, you will need to check that you have at least one transporter listed. To do this, we will add new OI form. You cannot search for the transporter's EPID number like you could in the GM or WR forms, but you can make sure that the EPID number that you have is correct by going to rcrapublic.epa.gov. If the EPID number is correct, it will pre-populate this information for you. Just make sure in section C, type of activity, that you mark transporter. Once you've completed this, you will click Save, and it will now be listed under OI form. And you can print, edit, or delete using those action buttons. For the SI form, we will add new site ID form. So the SI form is already filled out with information from previous submittals. So all you really need to do is make sure that this information is correct and up to date. If you make any changes to this information, just please summarize those changes in the comments. Section 3 pertains to the site name. Section 4, the site location. If you change the site address, you might need to open up a new EPID number since EPID numbers are site-specific and do not move to new locations. Section 5 is the site mailing address. Section 6 is the site land type. Section 7 is the NAICS codes. You can add multiple codes if necessary, and if you are unsure what codes are best suited for your facility, you can search using keywords like oil, or if you only remember certain numbers, you can search by numbers as well. Section 8 is for the site contact. So this is who we will contact if there are any issues with the form or report. So please make sure this information is as accurate and up to date as possible. Section 9 deals with the legal owners and legal operators. So the legal owner of the facility is who owns the business. The legal owner of the property is who owns the land. The legal operator is who runs the business. And if you notice that there are multiples of the same owner and operator, please remove the duplicates. Make sure only the current owner, property owner, and operators are listed. So you can edit or delete using this pencil and X in this column. If you notice that the correct owner and operators are not listed, you can do that by clicking on Add, inputting the information. So either an email or phone number will be required. And if you are adding the property owner, just please note that in these comments. And you can copy some information from other areas of the SI form by clicking on the Copy From at the top of this window. Once you click Save Changes, you can do this as many times as you need to. So Section 10 is a regulated waste activity. You need to select what best describes the current status of the facility, not what the facility was during the reporting year. If you were a short-term generator, it will prompt you to describe that short-term generation event in this comment section. We cannot give you specifics for this section and preceding sections. You will need to contact someone in your surveillance regional office. Again, that contact information will be given at the end of the workshop. Section 11 is a continuation of the type of regulated waste activities. Just select what best pertains to your facility's operations. You can ignore Section 12 because Louisiana has not opted into this activity. If the facility has consolidated waste from very small quantity generators that are owned by the same entity, Section 14 will need to be completed. To add a very small quantity facility, you will click Add and input that information. If the very small quantity generator was located in Louisiana, an EPID number is required. Since not all states require that VSQGs have an EPID number, RCRA info will not prompt you if you have not listed the EPID number. You cannot search for the EPID number in this section, but you can always double check that information by going to rcrapublic.epa.gov. Once you have inputted the information, you've double checked it, you will click Save. And you'll see that it is now in that table. You can print, or not print, you can edit or delete using this pencil and X, and do this as many times as you need to. So, Section 15 is a notification of LQG site closure. You can complete this on the RCRA info form, but it would probably be easier to use the HW1 as a regular notification. So moving on to Section 16, the notification of hazardous secondary material. This is a reporting year for that, so you will need, if you manage hazardous secondary material, you will click Yes. Your reason for notification and date. If you choose notifying that the facility has stopped managing, you will need to input a date. In Section 2, you will notice that it has already had some information filled out. You will need to add the actual short tons that you generated of this waste. To do that, you will click on the pencil and input that information. Click on Save Changes, and it will bring you back to this window. If you do not see a waste that you managed in this table, you can add one by clicking on Add, choosing a facility code, the hazardous waste code that pertains to the waste, how much you thought you would generate, and how much you actually generated. Select your land-based unit and click Save Changes. You can do this as many times as you need to. So once you have completed the SI form, you will click on this review button. And if there's any information that is incorrect, RCRA Info will scroll you to that section. If there are no outstanding issues, RCRA Info will just scroll you back up to the very beginning. Once you make it down to the very bottom, the review button will now say save. You'll click on that save. This green bar will pop up at the top of your window saying that you have successfully saved your Biennial Report Side ID form. You will see that a summary of your SI form is listed in this table. You can print or edit using those action buttons. So now we will sign and submit the report. If you have been approved as a certifier or site manager, you will see this sign and submit button underneath the site ID form. Click on that, certify that this information is accurate to the best of your ability. Log in, answer one of those verification questions, and you can sign your report. It will bring you back to that main dashboard where you will see that in progress will now summarize your annual report. Under status will say submitted. If you hover or click on submitted, it will show you who last updated your report and when they did. RCRA Info will send the site contact an email when the report was submitted and when the report has been approved. If there are any issues with the report, RCRA Info and DQ staff will send an email that states the report was rejected and the reason why. If the report has been rejected for any reason, it will need to be resubmitted. So we are finished with our walkthrough of RCRA Info. The next few slides will be some contact information. The first one is for the Waste Notifications and Reporting Group. The quickest and best way to get assistance is to use that email, the hw1formassistance@la.gov. That will send everyone on this page an email. So that is probably your best bet to get a response fast. We will be the best resource if you have any questions regarding how to fill out the form or how to use RCRA Info. The surveillance regional offices are broken up by parish, so you'll use your facility's locations parish. Here is their phone number, fax, and emails. You can find this information on LDEQ's website in the directory. The Small Business Assistance Program is a great resource if you classify as a small business. They help people understand regulations and permits. They do have different regions from surveillance, so double check that before you choose your region. So here's some few websites that I found helpful. LDEQ's website is on there. EDMS, you can see your past submissions. NAICS.com is a great resource if you need help with finding your NAICS code. RCRApublic.epa.gov, you can also view your past submissions and find EPA ID numbers. And RCRA Info.